Hello, and welcome to a video about settings for stud welding machines, specifically for lift ignition stud welding. How do I set up this machine? If you can read, you definitely have an advantage. There's a diagram for this in the user manual. Now, some of you might say, wow, that looks pretty complicated at first glance. But actually, it's not complicated at all. We're going to explain to you now how to read this diagram so you can quickly understand how to set up a stud welding machine. So we see between the two diagrams, here the diameter of the stud is indicated. We start at 4 millimeters and go up to 25 millimeters. On the right side, you can see this thick field. We're not welding with parameters set in stone. Instead, we're always working within a range. Depending on the material, whether we're welding stainless steel, regular steel, or depending on the environment. Whatever the case may be, things can change. Sometimes I might need to weld with 50 amps more or 50 amps less, a little less time or a little more time. That's why we operate within a range. And in the graphic, it's explained using a 16 millimeter bolt as an example of how I set everything up. Yes, you can see it here in the graphic on the right. There, we have our welding window. At the bottom, we've marked the current from 200 to 2400 amps. At the top, we've marked the time from 0.1 to 1.2 seconds. And using a 16 millimeter bolt, which we've circled here in the middle, we can now, for example, see if we go from this 16 millimeter bolt into our welding window, go down, we see that it's welded between 1000 and 1400 amps. So we set 1200 amps on the machine. We go up to the time, and there we see 0.6 seconds, so 600 milliseconds. And now we just set that on the machine and try to see if it works. If it doesn't work, if we still have minor errors, we can always make adjustments. We can add or subtract 50 amps. We'll see how that goes. But then we're in the middle of the window, and that should always work for steel. In position PA. Now, if we're welding stainless steel, for stainless steel, they say you should use about 10% less power and 10% less time. In the graphic on the left, we have the settings for the gun. How to set up the gun, we'll explain in another video. But we set the lift and we set the stick out. At the front, we have the stick out, and now suddenly you can see two studs. What matters to us when welding with a ceramic ring, the only one that matters is the one where you can see the small aluminum ball at the bottom, that little pin. That's the curve we're interested in. So for a 16 millimeter stud again, in this example, we're at about 3.5. With a stick out of 3.5 and a lift of 3 millimeters. It's actually pretty simple. Let's take the example again for a 25 millimeter headed stud, which is now all the way at the top. The window moves all the way back here. We set it to 1200 milliseconds at 2400 amps. The same thing on the other side. Again, we take the stud with the aluminum ball at the bottom. And now we're at a lift of 5.5 millimeters and a stick out of 7 millimeters. Let's set the whole thing up on the machine. We turn on the machine, and after a few seconds, our start screen appears right away. And basically, it's self-explanatory. Here on the left side, we have the setting for the current. We can go up, we can go down. And on the other side, we have the setting for the time. That's where we set our time. That's pretty much it. Super simple. And if you still have questions, don't hesitate. Visit www.KÖCO.net, contact us by email, or give us a call. We're happy to help you out. Thank you.